Close your eyes and listen. It's not a voice, yet it speaks. It's not a violin, yet it weeps. It's a sound that exists in the cracks between the notes, a fluid, haunting wail that seems to defy the very physics of a fretted instrument. In the world of rock and roll, the guitar is usually a weapon of percussion and power chords. But in the hands of Chris Rea, the guitar became something else entirely. It became a liquid. For over 4 decades, that signature slide sound has been the emotional heartbeat of his music. It is the sound of The Road to Hell, the shimmering heat of On the Beach, and the melancholic ghost of Stainsby Girls. But how did a self-taught boy from the industrial gray of Middlesbrough develop a technique that would make the masters of the Mississippi Delta stop and listen? This isn't just about music. It's about a lifelong obsession with the alchemy of metal, glass, and human emotion. This is the masterclass of the slide. To understand the Rea sound, we have to go back to a time before the fame, to a young man sitting in a small room, frustrated by the limitations of the guitar. Most guitarists learn to press the strings against the metal frets to create a note. It's a binary system, on or off. But Chris Rea found this too rigid, too mechanical. He wanted the guitar to sing like the Italian opera records his father played, or to moan like the old blues singers he discovered on late-night radio. The legend goes that his first encounter with a slide wasn't a professional music tool bought from a shop. It was a piece of junk, a brass pipe, or a glass bottleneck. When he placed that hard surface against the strings and let it glide, he didn't just hear a note. He heard the infinite space between the notes. He realized that the slide allowed him to achieve microtonality, the ability to hit the tiny, emotional frequencies that exist between a C and a C sharp. This was the birth of his musical DNA. While his peers were practicing fast scales and flashy solos, Chris was practicing the art of the glide. He was learning how to make the guitar breathe. Technically, Chris Rea's approach to the slide is an anomaly. Most slide players, like Bonnie Raitt or Duane Allman, use the slide on their ring or middle finger. Chris chose the pinky. This was a crucial decision. By using his smallest finger for the slide, he kept his other 3 fingers free to fret chords and play regular notes. This allowed him to switch instantly between a traditional rock sound and that ethereal slide wail, often within the same bar of music. It gave his playing a vertical depth that few could replicate. Then there is the question of the action. Most guitarists want their strings as close to the fretboard as possible for ease of playing. But for a slide master, this is a recipe for disaster. Chris kept his strings high, dangerously high. It required immense hand strength, a physical toll that would eventually contribute to his later health struggles. But this high action allowed the slide to vibrate freely, creating a sustain that lasted for an eternity. And we cannot talk about his tone without mentioning his babies, the guitars. Most notably, the Pink Strat, a heavily weathered 1962 Fender Stratocaster. To the untrained eye, it looked like a piece of driftwood. To Chris, it was a scientific instrument. He knew exactly how the old wood resonated with the metal of his slide. He experimented with different materials, heavy brass for a dark, growling tone, glass for a sweet, singing sustain. He was a scientist in a denim jacket, constantly recalibrating his equipment to find the perfect cry. The most profound secret of Chris Rea's technique isn't found in his fingers, but in his ears. Chris didn't try to play like a guitar player. He tried to play like a singer. He studied the way a human voice breaks when it reaches an emotional peak. He studied the vibrato of a soul singer. If you listen closely to a solo like the one in The Blue Cafe, you'll notice that he rarely hits a note directly. He slides into it from below, mimicking the way a person might tentatively start a sentence before finding their confidence. He uses the slide to create a sob in the music. This mimicry is why his music feels so deeply personal. Even when there are no lyrics, the guitar is telling you a story. It is complaining, it is celebrating, it is mourning. He once remarked that he felt the guitar was a limited instrument until he discovered the slide. To him, the frets were like prison bars, and the slide was the key that let the music escape. This philosophy changed the way he wrote songs. He started writing melodies that were specifically designed for the slide. Long, sweeping lines that required the sustain only metal on metal could provide. He turned the blues into a cinematic experience. The true test of his mastery came after 2001. After surviving his massive surgery, Chris faced a terrifying reality. His body was too weak to handle the heavy electric guitars and the high-tension strings he had used for decades. Many thought his playing days were over. But this is where the Untold Legacy truly shines. Instead of giving up, Chris adapted. He moved toward more acoustic, resonator-based blues. He started playing lap steel, placing the guitar flat on his knees and using a heavy steel bar. This transition led to the dancing down the Stony Road era. It was a return to the roots, but with a master's touch. The music became even rawer, even more honest. He proved that the slide wasn't just a gimmick or a style, it was his voice. Even when his physical voice was weakened by illness, his slide voice grew stronger, more commanding, and more soulful. He became a mentor to a new generation of blues players, though he rarely sought the spotlight. Legends like Mark Knopfler and Eric Clapton have expressed their profound respect for his unique touch. It's a touch that cannot be taught in a book. It's a combination of the tension in his arm, the moisture on his skin, and the specific way he lets the slide dampen the strings behind the slide. A technique known as behind-the-slide muting that gives his notes their incredible clarity. As we stand in 2025, the sound of Chris Rea's slide guitar remains one of the most recognizable sonic signatures in history. It is a testament to the idea that greatness doesn't come from following the rules, but from finding a way to make a machine feel human. He took a simple piece of metal and a wooden box and used them to map the human heart. He showed us that even in the most industrial, cold environments, you can find a sound that is warm, fluid, and full of life. The slide is no longer just a tool. It is a bridge between the grit of Middlesbrough and the heights of musical heaven. The maestro may have slowed down, but the vibration remains. Somewhere, on a lonely highway or in a quiet bedroom, a young guitarist is picking up a piece of glass, sliding it across the strings, and trying to capture just a fraction of that magic. The cry goes on. The legacy is eternal.